Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the podcast. On this episode, I'm super honored to be joined by Carlos, better known as MCD. How you going, man? How's your week been?
Good, man. Week's been really, really good. Just bogged down with work, but glad it's a weekend. Back to music. I was up till about 5 last night, so
Oh wow, far out.
4 hours sleep. But it's I mean, that's the best thing about COVID, I guess. Just the ability to have more time to do things, which is good.
I feel that. And you got the podcast going on. Hey, that's happening today.
Yeah, so that dropped or will drop in about 30 minutes or so. And then we got the live stream as well. So it's been good that we've been able to do the podcast and also the live stream as well. Awesome. So to be honest, I'm honoured and proud to be hosting the podcast and also doing the live stream because right now there's very few escapes that we still have. We don't have events and whatnot, but music is one avenue that we all have access to, and I think we need it more now than ever. So that's what keeps me going during this time.
Absolutely, man. Couldn't agree more. So for everyone who isn't quite aware, Carlos has been hosting the Massive Saturdays podcast, and that's been going on every Saturday. Is that correct?
Every Saturday.
Awesome, dude. Awesome. Now, I'm moving forward with the show, so I want to start off with the origin stories, of course. So tell us about you personally, man. How did you get involved into the hard dance scene? When did it come about? Like, what year roughly? How old were you? What was going on in your life?
So around, I actually started MCing when I was 18, and I originally started in R&B and hip hop. So I used to do a lot of the sort of Asian nights back in 2000, and then was doing that for about maybe 6 years, and then I met Pulsar through one of the Asian parties. And he was like, look, I need an MC. Are you cool just to come and do host and do some stuff? I'm like, yeah. And I was comfortable with it because at that time, that era, Hands Up was really big. So I was like, yeah, cool, let's do it. Prior to that, I mean, I'd been going to raves since I was 13, like the happy hardcore underground sort of raves, like Electric, and Someone on the Decks, those sort of old school parties. So it's something that in terms of electronic dance music I've always loved. But yeah, probably in 06, 05, 06, went and did a party, and it started from there. So it's been a really, really cool ride. For me, the coolest thing to be a part of that sort of boom from the start. And to see how Australian hardstyle has evolved, and be a supporter of it and be a part of it. So that's something that I'll take to my grave, that I'm honoured to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. You're one of the founding fathers, hey?
Yeah, it's I mean, I was talking about this with a few friends before. It's crazy the evolution of hardstyle in Australia. Since, I mean, the roots go back to hard dance in terms of transmission, in terms of plastic, all the old school sort of nights, Sublime, where was actual hard dance, hard trance. And then from that sort of, we started having a view to what was happening in Holland, in the Netherlands, and that sort of sound started to filter through here. Guys pushing the sound like Nick Fish, Amber Savage, Jumping Jack, Pee Wee Ferris, those guys started pushing down here. And then you had other guys such as Matrix as well that started pushing the sound. So, I mean, even before I started MCing to hard trance, I'd always loved electronic dance music. And I was one of those guys that would be at Sublime down at home nightclub every week for about 2-3 years. Every week. So when people tell me that they love coming to Massive every week, I completely understand it. Especially like back at Sublime, like a couple of stories. Back at Sublime, basically, security guards had the run of the mill. It's like they say you can come in or not. And there were a few rules there, and one of them was that you couldn't have like a shortcut, and I don't know why. So I ended up going to Woolies and actually shaved my head off to get into a club.
Wow, and then that became your look ever since, right?
And that actually became my look ever since. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, it was, I mean, for us, what Massive to people is now is what Sublime was for us. Sublime was the place to be. And it was, I mean, it ran for almost 20 years.
Wow.
And it was the soul of Sydney. Like the best thing about Sublime was you had Voodoo downstairs, which is hard dance. You had Beat Fix, you had Cargo, and Cargo was house orientated. Beat Fix is more breaks, and it was really the one place everyone came together, regardless of style. Everybody knew each other, and there was that sort of sense of family and unity. And it's from that I've sort of taken that ethos to Massive as well. Is that when it comes to music, everyone's equal. Do you know what I mean? It's not about, okay, who can spend the most money or whatever. It's just that music is a great equaler. When it comes to festivals, everyone on that dance floor, there's no difference.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more, man. Awesome. So did you jump into MCing right away, or were you like a bit of a muso at all growing up? Did you have the itch to get behind the decks at all? How did MCD come about?
So my mum was actually a singer. So she was a singer back in the UK, and Dad actually used to manage her, and she used to sing a lot of the old Motown stuff. And when they moved here from the UK and I was born, she used to take me to the shows that she did here. So like when I was like 1, 2, 3, and I used to be like in a pram just off stage, and she used to be singing, and Dad used to be there. So for me, and I look at the photos now, my mum is my influence. If it wasn't for her, then I wouldn't be doing what I do, and I wouldn't have the love and appreciation that I have for music. I still remember when I was just sitting on a lap, and she used to play me some Commodores, some Stevie Wonder. She used to sing to me, and for me, that's why I do what I do, because of her.
Lovely,
yeah. So from that, it sort of eventuated that throughout school, I'd always have my headphones in.
So it's always been part of your life, musical, your family. Yeah,
it's always been part of my life. And the thing I really, really appreciate, it's not just sort of one style of music. Like I used to listen to blues, and I still do, classical, even country. Like the best thing about having that sort of versatility and keeping an open mind is that it starts to shape you as a person.
Absolutely.
Especially the stuff that you listen to, because there's certain things that you can relate to, and there's just some things that hit you different. Do you know what I mean? So for me, growing up, was definitely big on R&B, big on hip hop, big on drum and bass, big on trance. And when I actually first started clubbing, I used to go to trance clubs. I still remember seeing like Ferry Corsten in O2. And I was one of those guys doing the fucking light thing, and like even my friends still talk about it today, that we originally started in trance and then sort of transitioned to hard trance, and then through to the hardstyle scene. So that was me to a T. Like I just listen to anything because I knew that there would always be something I'd like, and just to focus on what I like instead of what I didn't.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool.
Yeah, so from that, it eventually sort of morphed into me wanting to become an MC.
Right.
Only because I had such a love for hip hop, especially during like my early age when I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Fresh out of high school, basically I was just literally bumming around. When I say bumming around, like I was just going out doing nothing with no real purpose. And then the opportunity came along on, we used to have this sort of group on IRC, which is like a chat relay back in the day. And a friend was like, look, I need an MC. And I'd never MC'd in my life. And I'm like, and this is for an R&B club. And I'm like, you know what? I'll do it. This is in 2000. So the very first time I ever MC'd was for R&B. And I used Tupac lyrics the whole way through the night.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Cool, man.
It was just because it was something that I was comfortable with, and I thought, well, all right, pretty much you could. I understood the concept of MCing because there's MCing and there's hosting,
Right.
and back then it was purely just hosting and MCing sort of went hand in hand, but. I mean, the difference is, I guess, as an MC, you'd sort of spit some bars over the top of a few tracks back in the day, which I did, but then it sort of evolved to hosting because people wanted to sort of hear the music and whatnot. And so that was the R&B side. And it was a very similar thing to when I sort of moved into hard dance as well. One of my favorite tracks is Die Witness Master Plan. And the first time I MC to Hard Dance, it's the same thing I did. I was just picking off lyrics that I knew were, in terms of hype, that I knew would work, and it worked. And that's how I sort of started my identity, was using other stuff until I sort of got that. So until I got it, and it does take a while to get it. So for me, it was understanding the music, listening to the music, and putting myself in the position of people in the crowd. What if I was in the crowd? What would I want to hear?
Yeah, that's clever. That makes sense. You're right. Yeah. So, sorry, go on.
Yeah. So, and the thing was, there was no blueprint for MCs.
Yeah.
The very, very first one, and he is the pioneer, and he is the godfather, he is the Lord, is Losty.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I first started raving, he was the MC, and he was the only one. There was no other MCs. He was the first one on stage in terms of utopias, like Powerhouse Productions and stuff like that. So he was the very, very first one. But in terms of hard dance and hardstyle, there weren't really many MCs. So yeah, I mean, I've always told Losty he will always be my favorite MC, and it's a privilege that I've been able to work with him today, because it really sort of slaps me in the face, is that first I was a raver, now I'm an entertainer, and I'm working with all these guys that I consider idols and people I look up to and influence.
That makes sense, dude. That's awesome. Did he ever give you any advice back in the day that maybe you feel you could pass on to new and up and coming MCs?
He didn't, because we didn't really talk up until we started seeing each other out and about.
Makes sense.
So when I started MCing, I really had to feel my way through what worked and what didn't.
Right.
And it was literally trial and error. There were some nights that I'd have a really, really shit night.
Yeah.
And there would be some nights that I nail it.
Yeah.
And again, there was no blueprint. It was me sort of understanding the music, knowing when to talk, when not to talk, knowing what to say, how to say it, be clear, how often to say it, and that was how I sort of created my identity, because it was again going back to the mantra of if I was in the crowd, what would I want to hear, what would hype me up?
Yeah, right.
Do you know what I mean? Cool. And I guess especially when it comes to music now, I guess the biggest piece of advice I would give to upcoming MCs now is to harness your emotion, because even I have trouble with it, harnessing it, because I'll just get too hyped up. Just because there's a banging track and I'll keep MCing, and then it's only sort of probably in the past 2-3 years that I've sort of held back, because the people want to hear the music, and that's first and foremost. You are a bridge.
Yeah,
you're not the main spectacle. Yeah. You're a bridge between the DJ and the crowd, and if you do it really, really well, you'll see the results.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess it's finding that balance. Hey.
Yeah, and it took me a long while to find that balance, like a really, really long time. When I think back to the early days, I'm proud of it because of what I was able to accomplish between 08 to about 2013-14, because again there was no blueprint. I basically had to sort of feel my way through it, and then as other MCs in Holland started coming across, it kind of vindicated what I was doing, because what they were doing was what I was doing. Obviously there weren't as many parties, but that's how I started to sort of feel my way through it and create my own identity. And not just that, it was the crowd reaction as well. And I was very, very lucky to have Pulsar and Sway in my corner, because they would always tell me when I'm fucking up. They would always give me suggestions, and they would always say, hey, think about it from this perspective. And if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be here right now. And I owe a lot of it to Joe and Jace.
That's cool, man. Awesome. Great origin stories, by the way. Moving forward, so how do you tell us a bit about your first time doing vocals for a track. You know, your early days. Like, what was the first track that you ever got your vocals recorded on? Tell me about that experience.
So the very first track I did was, and I'm probably wrong because my memory's screwed, but the very first track that I actually remember is with Evil Activities and the Viper, Highest Ace. And we were literally in Holland, I was going to Defqon, and the Saint and Luke Spellbound, we'd met the Viper at Defqon. And I was fortunate enough to be able to jump on stage for a couple of his tracks at the Black Stage. Yeah. And this was back, Jesus, when was this? Probably 13, 14, could be even earlier. And he was like, look, you've got a mad voice, come through to the studio. So maybe about 2-3 days later after Defqon, we actually went to Neophyte Records studio.
Oh, wow, dude.
And it was fucking like, I was blown away.
Yeah.
I really, really was, because as a kid growing up, Neophyte Records was and is the shit.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
When it comes to hardcore, Neophyte is the first one mentioned, right? Not just as a DJ, but as a label, because back then they had everybody on it, like Viper, Neophyte, Evil Activities, and everybody, right? Mm-hmm. So literally walked in and looking at, like, it looked like an apartment block. Yeah, right. And it's hard to sort of describe the Dutch sort of architecture, but basically had everyone's studio inside. And when I was with the Viper, he was showing me, yep, this is this studio, this is this studio, this studio, and I'm like, I felt like I was in Disneyland.
Yeah, cool. Just a dream come true. All these legends, where they work and whatnot. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. So I really, really owe the opportunity to the Saint for pushing me, because I'm very shy. I'm very introverted. But
for the guy that G's up the crowds, you're a bit quiet on the inside.
Away from the mic, I'm actually very introverted and quite shy. And I do keep to myself, and that's something that I've sort of had to work on as a personal sort of trait to break out of that sort of shell. When I'm MCing, it flips. Yeah. Because I'm so comfortable, I'm so confident, I'm able to sort of reach out into the crowd, identify with the crowd and whatnot. But up until probably maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, I was always just kept to myself. Right. Just kept to my friends, didn't really sort of socialize outside of that.
Oh, that's really interesting, man. What would you say to maybe introverted people who are maybe struggling to, you know, take that first step, or be like, you know, they've got that passion, they love the music, maybe they spend more time at home working on their own stuff rather than getting out there and being on stage? Is there any advice maybe that you'd give to people, like jump in, or?
You've got to find your groove, and you've got to do it baby steps. You can't just go from one thing to an extreme, because it's very daunting. Right. For me, what sort of broke me out of it was just talking to people, and from that, I'd get the confidence. Okay, well, they're cool. I'm good, and I'd start to venture out. Until it got to a point where I was like, there was this drum and bass artist that I wanted to see, and I can't remember his name. It bugs me, but I didn't know anybody that was going. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna go by myself. And it was the best thing I ever did. From that point, I was like, cool, I'm good, because I basically went to the night, didn't know anybody there. It was some underground warehouse in Newtown. But for me, that was like my point where I'm like, all right, I'm good with it now.
Awesome, dude. So just jumping in, hey, not worrying. Did you feel free not knowing everyone there? Were you like, hey, I can be whoever I want to be? Or like, tell me.
I've always been who I am. I've always been who I am, but when it comes to music, for me, that's my drive.
Right.
And if you really, really love something, you'll do whatever it takes.
Makes sense. Yeah, cool.
And that's a mantra that I apply to everything. Like, if you really, really want something, or you really love something, or you really have a passion for something, you'll do whatever it takes to maintain that connection.
Yeah, you're right. That's great advice, man. Moving forward with the show, so I have some awesome questions for you. This first question comes from our local boy, Ben Gosling Firelight.
Hey.
What is your favorite genre to MC?
Damn, I hate you, Ben. It's a hard question because I love MCing.
Can't pick favorite, eh?
I can't pick a favorite because every music has their own pro. Right?
Like a vibe or a mood even.
Yeah, I mean, hardstyle is just pure energy. Chill trap is just feels. Hip hop is just is relatable, and it's very powerful and it's very energetic. So obviously hardstyle is a genre I love. But in terms of favorite, it's like saying pick your favorite kid.
Yeah. You can't do it.
Well, some parents can, but I mean, if and when I have kids, yeah, I definitely can't. Yeah. And that's what for me. I love different styles of music, and each one of them has a pro over the other.
Fair enough, dude. Cool. Next question. This one comes from Jesse Redhot. What has been your favorite MCing moment? Or tell us, do you have any few favorite MCing moments?
Probably the first Midnight Mafia we did at Showgrounds.
Awesome.
Because it was such a monumental event that we had never had an indoor event with 20,000 people for a hardstyle.
The setup was just phenomenal. Like, everyone was amazed, and the light show and everything just so impressive.
The thing that really, really took me back was that there was probably a moment where I'm looking out into the crowd, and I thought I was in Holland.
Yeah, right.
Because it looked like a Dutch event, and that's what made me proud. I'm just like, holy shit! Like, Aussies, we did it, right? And it was just people as far as I could see, happy people, energetic people.
Smiles for days.
Yeah, it was smiles for days. So with it was Midnight Mafia was one. Second one was the first time I hosted Defqon. I hosted the main stage of Defqon. It is definitely a special moment for me, and closing Defqon with Frontliner and Dilly Tech. It was just that it flew so quick, and I think most people will sort of kind of relate to it because you wait 12 months for Defqon, and then you get to Defqon, and before you know it, it's just gone. That for me. That it always happens for Defqon. I don't know. It always happened for Defqon. Sorry.
You get PDD.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh great, we've got another 364 days to wait. Yeah. So, so it was closing Defqon with Frontliner and Dilly Tech. First time hosting Defqon here in Australia, main stage, and also Midnight Mafia. For me, those three are key because of not just. I'm proud for myself, but I'm just to see the response and to see that many people at Midnight Mafia. It just sticks in my memory because it just went on and on and on. And not just that, it was just the atmosphere as well. Like with Headhunters, with TNT. Miss Kate, Anger Fist, all those guys. It was just non-stop energy, and it will always be one of my favorite events.
That's awesome, dude. Great stories. Now, we're going to flip the question to the opposite. So this one comes from Nina. She would like to know, tell us a bit about the worst stage incident that you've had.
Worst stage incident. There's only one, and that's and it's massive. Because I fell off the stage.
Oh no.
Yeah, so the first week where we got new lighting in, and people that know the massive stage, you've got the actual stage, and then you've got a podium down the front.
Like a little step down, right?
Like a little step down, right? Yeah. So they just got new lighting in, and the lighting literally shone in your face. So I was MCing, and then all of a sudden, I was MCing, and then I was about to step down, and the light hits me in the eye. I look down, and you know when a light hits you on the eye, all you can see is white. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, I'm good. I can step, and I've just gone.
Oh no.
Yeah. So it was.
Is there a video of this?
No. There's a video of Mickey D trying to crowd surf on one person.
Yeah, right.
That for me is my favorite thing that's ever happened at Massive. Like this Mickey D's trying to crowd surf on one guy in the crowd. And it's hilarious.
Did that guy go gym at least? Like, did he hold him?
Oh no, it was the smallest guy. Like Mickey D's huge, man. Like, and Mickey D like goes gym like and is really really big. And you got this guy, and we're friends with him. You got this one guy just standing there trying to hold him up, and it's like douche. So it was falling off the stage at Massive is one. There was another one. It was at Ultra where literally. Same thing. Lights hit me in the face. My head's hit the rotating light, and I've just gone flat. But jump back up. Like show goes on.
That's hilarious, dude. I guess that's also some advice for other people. Hey, keep aware of the lights.
Yeah, for me, that's one thing I learned very early on. Especially back in the day, that when it came to events, it was all about lasers. Right, it was as many lasers as you could find. So yeah, I'm lucky to now be behind it rather than in front of the lasers because it just blows my mind.
Makes sense. Cool. Next question. This one comes from Billy, and he would like to know what was it like MCing for the GPF set at KO. He reckons it looked really really fun.
It was really really fun. Like the whole Knockout Outdoor itself was an awesome event, and not just that, but the crowd at the Raw stage, from start to finish, and I mean actual start when Toza and Andrex played until the very very last set, the energy was just non-stop. Passion, hey. It was passion, and for me as an MC, and I'll be completely honest, when Raw first started coming out, I really didn't get it, and this is when it first started coming out. I really didn't get it, and I had to learn because in terms of euphoric and reverse bass, you tend to understand the song structures, so you know when you can talk, you know when not to talk, you know when there's vocals, etc. etc. With Raw, it just threw that out the window, right?
False drops and whatnot.
False drops. Kick changes. Yeah. So it forced it in a good way. It forced me to go out and listen to as much Raw. And then the more I listened to it, the more I understood why people have a passion for it, because it's just a different type of energy. After so long of not hearing the same thing, but it was just a great change. Because that Raw sound brings so much energy, and a different type of energy. It's really, really powerful. And not just that, it's the more I think about Raw now, the more I wouldn't just even classify it as Raw, it's a mixture of sounds now. Because you can have a raw kick, you can have a reverse bass kick, you can have a laser kick. It's a concoction of power.
It's really shaped hard dance and the Harderstyles these days, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has, and you can see it all over the world now. Not just in Europe or Australia, but even in the US. We're starting to see it, especially in the US, where Raw is getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And even hardcore as well with Little Texas is that people like it fast and hard. But I think the really really cool thing is that when Raw started doing that sort of switch, in terms of the kick, the tempo, and the sounds, everybody else finally understood, okay, we really have to pick up our game now, because Raw became very, very dominant, and rightfully so, because they were doing for different things. Guys like Ruler, Delete, I mean, Raw for me is like ADHD. Like, there's always something different, and it's always energetic, but there's always something different. But it was powerful. So for me, that's the Raw sound it's just sick.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Next question. This one comes from Will, and I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but he would like to know why the name MCD.
So when I was about maybe 12 or 13, I was running with a crew, and they nicknamed me Destiny.
Right.
Because I always believed in fate. I always believe, look, it is going to happen. It'll eventually happen, but you've got to push yourself to get it. And then when I started MCing, my MC name was Destiny. However, there's already a MC Destiny out there, Damo, so I shortened it to D.
Fair enough, dude. So I couldn't have Destiny on the flyers anymore, eh?
No, so the first time I had Destiny on the fly, he actually called me and goes, hey, my name's MC Destiny. And I'm like, oops. Oh, I'll change my name. But that was a cool thing. Like back then, we were more than happy to have a chat and talk it out. Yeah. And he's had it from the start, so I had no qualms sort of changing it.
Fair enough, dude. This one comes from Lewis. Having toured many times all over the country, what do you think makes Aussie states and cities unique to one another amongst the hardstyle scene? So tell me, do you find any differences amongst the states, I guess?
I think with Sydney is the epicenter. And Melbourne was the epicenter in the early days. In the reverse bass days, it was the epicenter. However, I think because Sydney evolved its taste to like new hardstyle, Sydney became the new epicenter, right? Melbourne for a while was stuck in only reverse bass, only reverse bass, only reverse bass.
Like the Showtech days, right?
Yeah, the Showtech days, but even up until about maybe 3-4, even I won't say 3-4 years ago, maybe about 5-6 years ago, Melbourne crowds only want a reverse bass. It wasn't until the new generation came through that they accepted what was coming out now in the new style. But I mean, for me, I'm really proud to be a part of it. With Perth, with Transition, with Brisbane, with Shock and Hard EDM, and Adelaide with Project Hardstyle. Man, it's refreshing. And the reason it's refreshing is because it feels like Sydney when hardstyle first started coming through. Cool. Because everyone has such an energy and love for it that they just can't get enough. And it's for me it's that sort of that culture in its infancy state that keeps bringing new people in. So when I see it in Adelaide, in Brisbane, and also Perth, it's so fucking sick to see, man. Like I'm happy for those guys that are doing well, because with Dean in Adelaide, with Logan in Perth, and with Andy Vo and Andy Nguyen in Brisbane, these guys have put the fucking hard work in. These guys have been trying to push the hardstyle sound for the past 5-10 years, yeah, right. And it's only been probably in the past 3-4 years that they've finally sort of cracked it and people have come along. In Brisbane's case, Brisbane was up there with Sydney and Melbourne. However, it started to die out. But again, due to the hard work of Andy Vo and Andy Nguyen, they've brought it back and it's come back in a really powerful way.
Awesome. Great to hear. Now, the final question comes from Damien, and he wanted to know, as an attendee, what was your favorite event?
As an attendee, there's too many, man.
Can't pick the favorites.
No, well, I mean, the thing is, as an attendee, Defqon is always up there. Like, and for me, being there when they did the Legends showcase and Showtech came out and did FTS, there was an instant switch in the vibe. Like, everybody just lost their shit because no one expected Showtech to be there. Yeah, absolutely. To walk out on a Defqon stage, and drop FTS. And for me, there's a video going around where you can just hear me. So we're on the VIP deck, and you can just hear me screaming "fuck" up and down, like Marge on the fucking plane in The Simpsons. Yeah. I'm just screaming "fuck," because it was so monumental. And then we just like the loudest I've screamed like the words ever. But it was just it was something that we never thought to see. And very much like Project 1, when HSU brought them out. I never thought we'd see Project 1, and there they were. Agree, yeah. So that also is one of my favorite events as an attendee and as an MC, because to be a part of that event with Project 1 back in Australia was huge. And also the last time we brought the last Hardstyle set that Showtech played that was in Sydney for Massive at the Horden. So it's hard to sort of separate as an MC and as an attendee. But yeah, it's I mean I keep saying it. I'm honoured and I'm privileged, and I'm proud to have been a part of so many great events, and I hope it continues in the future.
Yeah, awesome, bro. Coming towards the end of the show now, I would like to know what's going on in your life at the moment, man. Tell us, are there any projects that you're working on, any collabs, any tracks coming up? Tell us, what's planned for MCD over the next year?
So there is nothing planned, only because in the past couple of years, I actually stopped working to try and focus on MCing and try to figure it out. But at the end of last year, I decided to go back to work full time, only because there was just something missing in terms of a challenge, and not just that, but stability as well. We're not like Europe where we can get 4, 5, 6, 7 gigs a week. We don't have that demand. So I was only getting Friday night and Saturday night, and sometimes Thursday or Sunday, and it just wasn't enough to survive. And it was a struggle because you want to stick it out, but at the same time you have to be realistic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you need to be able to support yourself, and that's the main thing. So it got to the point where towards the end of last year I was like, you know what, I got to get back to work. So went back to work, and now I'm sort of settled in at work. So now it's literally just get the studio back up and running, which is good. So studios up and running, and now literally just recording, and trying to find that sort of passion again. Because for a while I just had a mental blank, had writer's block, and everything I wrote just sounded like shit. I didn't like it. But now I'm sort of, the more I'm listening to different styles, the more I'm picking up. So, yeah, I mean, nothing in the works at the moment, but right now I'm focused on the podcast, on the live stream, and just trying to evolve that. For me, live streaming has completely changed everything right now.
Absolutely.
In terms of the capability, in terms of the reach, it's, for me, I want to evolve that live stream so that when we do get back to the clubs, we keep that going. Whether that's live streaming at Massive for people that have missed out on tickets, there's just an amazing opportunity on the digital space to do that.
Yeah, right. Now, tell us, touching on live streaming, do you find Twitch might be the future at the moment, or do you prefer Facebook?
It's hard to say what is the future.
Yeah.
Because Facebook has the reach, but Twitch is fucking great. Like not the first time that I sort of saw how Twitch could be harnessed, but the first time I sort of jumped on was for Weaver's stream, and what he's done with his Twitch stream is fucking amazing, man. Like the interaction, not just that, but the reach that he has. And I guess that's a challenge, right? Is that you want the reach of Facebook, but you want the Twitch capability. So we've been sort of pondering and it's going to be an ongoing thing that, okay, well, how do you get the reach of Facebook and use the capability of Twitch? And we're still sort of playing around with that. I still believe Twitch is the future, but I think something else is going to come along that is going to utilize the same way that Twitch is for the gaming community. The new platform will be for the music community. Yeah,
right. Yeah, that'll be really interesting, because I guess we have issues with copyright and whatnot at the moment as well. Hey, yeah, that's probably the biggest struggle that a lot of people go through right now.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, anything that gets, when you do a live stream, you will either get cut, or post live stream it'll be muted, right? Now, the thing I sort of struggle to understand, and if anybody knows, let me know, but when you're not making any money off Facebook, right? If you were making money off Facebook, I completely understand. But when you're live streaming, you're not really making any money. All you're doing is putting on a show. No one's paying anything. people are watching the stream and that's it.
Yeah.
That's why when someone comes along with this new platform that actually is able to harness music, it's game over.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, I guess until that day comes, hey. Yeah. Cool, man. Now, finishing up the show, I like to give the guests every opportunity to give a shout out or just tell us anything else that's going on in your life, man. So feel free to.
Yeah, so shout out to the massive crew and also Hardstyle Familiar. I appreciate the support that you guys have given me, and I'm a loss for words to be here standing 20 years later and still doing the shit that I love. So I hope you guys are safe and well, and can't wait to be with you guys as one familiar, as one heart beating again at Massive or any Hardstyle event.
Awesome, man. Your journey's been so inspiring, bro. It's been great to see you grow over the last 20 years as well. Thanks for being on the show, man.
Thank you very much for having me, man.
Cheers, bro.
Dope.